cool thing about polynomials is that they are continuous. They are never ending. They have no jumps, no missing pieces. The way I was taught, continuous means that you can draw it without lifting your pencil. They are smooth, which means no sharp turns. Like some of you may remember the absolute value where it's a V, sharp V, none of those. And the domain is always negative infinity to positive infinity, just like when we were doing the quadratics and they had the domain of negative infinity to positive infinity, all real numbers. Now, degree of our polynomial functions, standard form polynomial. So remember that is no parentheses. And that's how we're going to remember standard form. The degree n is the highest degree of its exponents. If there's only one variable in the polynomial, it's the highest exponent. And by one variable, I don't mean that the variable cannot show up multiple times. I mean that one variable, if we only have x's, that's it. We're not mixing x and y together. We're not mixing a z and a t together. If we have a factored form polynomial, and we know we have factored form because there are parentheses, factored form, parentheses, the degree is the sum of all the exponents and if you want to be specific, we mean on the variables. And you're going to learn the sum of all the exponents. The exponents are going to wind up being the multiplicities when we're talking about factored form. So let's go through example number 1 here. It says determine the degree and the domain in interval notation of the following polynomials. Your very first step with these, you have to determine what form you have. Do you have standard form or factored form? So think to yourself, do I have parentheses in part A? No, because I do not have parentheses. This is standard form. Again, no parentheses means standard form. Yeah, so no parentheses. Because we have no parentheses, we need to find the highest degree. So highest exponent, and our highest exponent is 7. So highest exponent is 7, which means our degree, which we call n, is 7. And from there, we can go ahead and answer the second part. They asked for our domain in interval notation. Our domain of a polynomial is negative infinity to positive infinity always. Okay. Let's look at our next one. You have to ask yourself, do we have standard form or factored form? Because we have no parentheses, again, that means that we have standard form. In our last example, our standard form was already in descending order, and we could use the very first one, very first term. But here, notice that our biggest exponent is actually our second term. It's not automatically the first one because it needed to be in descending order, or if you don't want to take the time to do that yet, we need the highest. So our highest exponent is 8, which means that our degree n is 8. Don't forget, they also want our domain in interval notation, and our domain of a polynomial is always negative infinity to positive infinity. One more example. Part C. Have to ask, and do you have standard form or factored form? Here, because we have parentheses, parentheses means factored form. So factored form, to find your degree, we're going to take the sum of all the exponents on the variables. So if you're thinking to yourself, 2 plus 4 plus 10, you're on the right track, but you're forgetting somebody. Because right up here at the very beginning, we have a variable. And remember, if you do not see its degree, but the variable is there, it's a 1. So our exponents that we need to add are going to be 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 10, which means that our degree, remember which we call n, is going to be 17. And then our domain, because we have a polynomial, it doesn't matter what form the polynomial is in, is negative infinity to positive infinity. And remember, this guy is a polynomial because he does not have any fractional exponents, does not have any negative exponents, and doesn't have any variables hiding in a denominator, which is the bottom of a fraction.